Welcome, listeners. I'm Silas, your sleepy storyteller, pulling you down the rabbit hole of time, where dreams and memories intertwine. If you enjoy these videos, please tap the like button. It really helps. Also, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can keep drifting along on your sleepy journey through history. And before we wander down the rabbit hole, share your city and time in the comments. I love imagining our journey threading through every ticking clock. Now, take a moment to find a comfortable resting position. Close your eyes gently, and in your own time, allow yourself to sink into the quiet atmosphere of the past as we begin our slow journey together. The city is still mostly quiet this morning. Dawn drifts over the western edge of Manhattan, brushing its first timid light across the glass and stone of lower downtown. I start my walk at 90 West Street, near the waterfront. The harbor glimmers faintly, reflecting ribbons of soft pink and pale gold as the sun begins its climb. The air carries the tang of salt from the river, mixed with a hint of diesel from boats that already move cautiously along the docks. Seagulls wheel overhead, their wings slicing the sky with effortless grace, calling to each other in shrill, irregular notes. The building itself, 90 West Street, stands resolute despite the horrors of the day before. Its facade bears the scars of the collapse from the Twin Towers, a neighboring giant whose shadow once loomed over this street. Windows are pocked, some replaced, some still boarded. The stone and brick carry soot and dust as a quiet testament to resilience. I run my hand along the rough surface of the entrance arch, imagining how the impact must have rippled through its frame. And yet, even here, in this city of ghosts and ash, the rhythm of life continues. The morning air is soft, almost gentle, carrying the muted sounds of the waterfront. A distant horn from a ship, water lapping against pilings, the faint scrape of tires on cobblestone streets. I pause for a moment to watch the river's movement, thinking of the countless ships that have come and gone, carrying goods, people, and stories across decades. This street has always been a threshold, a space where Manhattan meets the wider world, where arrivals and departures intersect. And now, in the wake of destruction, it feels like the edge of something fragile, delicate, yet undeniably enduring. I step carefully over the cracked sidewalk, each footfall echoing faintly against the quiet city. The dust that clings to the stone is still warm from yesterday's sunlight, the city itself settling from the chaos it has endured. Across the street, the skeletal remains of scaffolding rise like quiet sentinels, supporting structures still recovering, still trying to stand in defiance of the forces that brought so much down. Workers move slowly among the debris, their gestures precise and deliberate. Each carries the weight of careful reconstruction and remembrance, a rhythm that speaks to both human perseverance and the shadow of loss. As I walk eastward, I notice the subtle signs of nature's persistence amidst the rubble. Tiny weeds push through cracks in the concrete, and a few resilient blades of grass bend in the breeze that drifts off the river. Pigeons coo softly as they roost along ledges, unfazed by the weight of human tragedy below. The scent of wet concrete mingles with the salt air, an unusual perfume that clings to my senses. I inhale deeply, letting the quiet calm settle into me, a momentary reprieve before entering the next stretch of this somber journey. The historical weight of this street is tangible. 90 West Street was one of the buildings most heavily impacted by the collapse, yet it survived where others could not. Each cracked window and blackened wall tells a story of survival. I imagine the people who worked here, who lived nearby, who moved through these streets in the hours before the towers fell. Their memories must linger like invisible echoes, brushing past the living in the soft rustle of leaves or the faint chime of a streetcar bell. I walk along the perimeter of the building, letting my gaze linger on the lower floors, now reinforced with scaffolding and metal braces. The ground is uneven here, a mosaic of dust, glass, and brick. Every step requires care, not only to navigate the terrain, but also to honor the weight of the past. I can hear the muffled hum of a generator somewhere behind a chain-link fence, powering the slow, steady efforts of those working tirelessly to stabilize what remains. The waterfront itself invites reflection. The East River is still, glassy, and reflective in the morning light. I watch a small tugboat maneuver near a pier, its movements deliberate, each push against the water's current measured. The river has witnessed centuries of commerce, immigration, and now tragedy. It is a silent observer, carrying the stories of a city that never forgets. I imagine the families who walked this street yesterday, searching for missing loved ones, guided by the distant haze of smoke and dust. Today, the calm of the river belies the chaos that unfolded, a quiet mirror to a day of unimaginable loss. I pause to look skyward. The horizon is a gradient of soft blues and warm pinks, the city's jagged skyline breaking the morning light with a solemn elegance. Here, at the western edge, the air is tinged with possibility as well as grief. I notice the faint hum of early traffic, a reminder that life must continue even in the wake of devastation. And yet, the ghosts of what was lost hover lightly, barely perceptible in the faint morning haze. Moving east, I come across small markers and plaques commemorating the buildings and people affected. Each is understated, almost humble, a gentle reminder rather than a grand monument. They speak in quiet tones, much like the city itself now, honoring the weight of memory without overwhelming the senses. I run my fingers along a cold metal edge of one such marker, feeling the etched words beneath my fingertips. The names, dates, and places echo softly in my mind, joining with the sound of river water and distant bird calls. The city's rhythm gradually increases as I near the corner where West Street will lead me toward the Verizon building and the Millennium Hilton. Construction crews have already begun to form lines along the sidewalks, cordoning off areas that remain unstable. Steel beams stretch skyward, a forest of support against the remnants of concrete. Even amid this reconstruction, there is a sense of awe. The city bends, but it does not break. The morning breeze carries a scent of coffee from a nearby corner cafe, surprisingly comforting amid the stark reminders of yesterday. I pause a moment to breathe it in, letting warmth settle into my chest. The aroma is faint but steady, a quiet promise that life continues in familiar, grounding ways. A passerby nods briefly, carrying a clipboard, eyes set on some distant task. We share a silent acknowledgement, strangers yet companions in this slow, reflective journey through memory. Continuing eastward, the streets begin to open slightly, revealing glimpses of the skyline beyond. Lower Manhattan is still waking, the sounds of daily life gradually filling in the gaps left by yesterday's silence. I notice a few trees lining the street, their leaves trembling lightly in the wind. Sunlight touches their branches in fleeting golden strokes, and I imagine how these trees must have watched everything unfold, silently absorbing the echoes of panic, courage, and despair. As my steps carry me further from the edge of the city, I take in 90 West Street. One last time. Its presence is steadfast, its battered frame, a symbol of survival. I can almost see the building as it was before, the elegant structure standing proudly alongside the waterfront, alive with workers and visitors. And yet, even in its altered form, it speaks to the resilience of the city. A reminder that while walls can crack and windows shatter, spirit and memory endure. Before I move on toward Verizon Building and the stretch along Church Street, I pause to take a deep breath, letting the cool morning air fill my lungs. The river glints once more in the dawn light, and for a moment, the city feels suspended between grief and hope. Each step eastward carries me not only through streets of steel and stone, but through layers of history, memory, and human experience. The quiet has its own rhythm here, a gentle pulse beneath the city's recovering heart. I listen to it, the soft swish of the river, the distant creak of scaffolding, the faint calls of birds taking flight. Each sound is a note in a symphony that bridges past and present, carrying with it the weight of yesterday and the fragile promise of tomorrow. With each careful step, I prepare to leave 90 West Street behind, moving toward the Verizon Building, already seeing the faint outlines of scaffolds and construction equipment through the morning haze. The walk continues, eastward along the path where history has been carved into every brick and beam, where the air is still thick with memory, and the city slowly exhales into a new day. The soft glow of dawn stretches further across Lower Manhattan as I continue my quiet walk east along West Street. The city hums faintly, still gentle and tentative, as if the world itself is holding its breath after yesterday. The air is cool, but tinged with warmth, carrying the scent of the East River mingled with the faint trace of construction dust that still lingers from the collapse of the towers. My footsteps crunch softly over uneven sidewalks, careful and deliberate, each one a gentle echo in the hollow streets. Soon, the sturdy form of the Verizon Building rises ahead, its darkened windows catching the first rays of sunlight. Like 90 West Street before it, the Verizon Building bears marks of the unimaginable forces that swept through Lower Manhattan. Walls scarred, windows blown out, the facade pockmarked and blackened, yet the skeleton stands firm. I walk slowly along its base, letting my fingers brush lightly against the cold, textured stone. I imagine the tremors that rippled through its frame when the towers fell, the force of debris and fire pounding against its structure. And yet, here it is, silent, steady, enduring. There is a strange intimacy in this quiet, Normally, West Street is a thoroughfare bustling with traffic, taxis, and pedestrians. Today, it is a measured rhythm of human recovery, punctuated by the quiet hum of generators and the occasional sound of a hammer striking steel. I pause to breathe, letting the cool air mingle with the scent of early morning coffee from a distant corner cafe. It is comforting in a fragile way, a reminder that even in a city reeling from tragedy, life begins anew with the day. I step closer to the base of the Verizon building, noticing the small details that persist amid devastation. A few hardy weeds push through cracks in the sidewalk, their green resilience almost defiant against the weight of concrete and dust. Pigeons move cautiously along ledges, their coos soft against the hum of the city. A thin line of sunlight breaks through a gap between buildings, illuminating the specks of dust floating lazily in the air. Each particle seems to carry memory, tiny fragments of a day that will never be forgotten. The Verizon building itself has a history beyond yesterday's events. It has always been a hub of communication, its wires and networks carrying the pulse of a city that never truly sleeps. I think of the people who worked inside, who relied on its infrastructure, who may have been spared or lost during the chaos. Each scar on its facade tells a story of resilience and survival, of human ingenuity and determination. The building is quiet now, but I sense the echoes of thousands of conversations, phone calls, and messages carried within its walls. Continuing eastward, the skyline begins to change subtly, revealing the familiar form of the Millennium Hilton further along Church Street. Its glass and steel gleam softly in the dawn light, windows reflecting the pale pink of morning. The hotel, too, was touched by the collapse. Moderate damage, yet restored now, a symbol of the city's ability to endure. I walk slowly, taking in the calm of the early hours. The street beneath my feet is still littered with small remnants of yesterday, fragments of glass and metal, but the city's rhythm continues to reassert itself. I pause for a moment to take in the Millennium Hilton more closely. It is a structure that has seen countless travelers pass through its doors, a place of rest and temporary sanctuary. Yet yesterday, it became part of the story of devastation. Dust and debris from the towers rained down upon it, its glass facade shattering, scattering fragments like frozen sunlight across the pavement. Staff and guests must have watched in disbelief as the city they thought steady was torn apart in moments. Now, standing in the soft dawn, the hotel is a testament not only to resilience, but also to memory. The memory of what happened and what was survived. The quiet here allows me to notice the smaller details often lost in a bustling city. A thin breeze carries the faint scent of exhaust and salt water from the nearby river. I hear the soft scuff of a worker's boots against steel planks, the faint clatter of tools, and the rustle of pigeons startled by passing movement. The sun is climbing slowly, and as it does, light spills across the buildings in long golden streaks. Shadows stretch across the sidewalk, mingling with the dust and debris, creating a patchwork of dark and light that mirrors the city's own fractured state. I allow my mind to drift along with the rhythm of my walk. Yesterday, this very street must have been a chaotic scene. First the impact, then the cascading dust, the sirens, the screams, the desperate movements of people trying to find safety. Today, the echoes of that chaos hang faintly in the air, almost imperceptible but undeniably present. It is a quiet memory, a hushed reminder beneath the dawn chorus of city birds, and the distant calls of workers beginning their day. Passing the hotel, I notice a few small trees lining the sidewalk. Their leaves glint with dew, catching what little sunlight filters between buildings. I stop briefly, letting my fingers brush over the delicate greenery. Nature persists here, even in a city scarred by destruction. The wind moves gently through the branches, and for a fleeting moment, the world feels less heavy. Yet even in this peaceful observation, I am reminded of the fragility of the urban fabric, how quickly steel and glass can shatter, how quickly lives can be uprooted, how quickly history can mark its imprint on a city. I glance down at the street signs, reading Church Street and West Street, letting the names anchor me to the geography of this place. These streets have carried generations of New Yorkers, immigrants, office workers, travelers, and families. And now, they carry the invisible weight of yesterday's tragedy, a burden that is slowly, painstakingly being lifted through human effort and time. The juxtaposition of nature's small persistence and the city's immense human structures is stark, yet comforting. Life pushes through the cracks, both literal and metaphorical. As I move eastward, past the Millennium Hilton, I notice the subtle interplay of shadow and light. The neighboring buildings reflect sunlight onto the street, highlighting the dust motes still suspended in the early morning air. A few early commuters walk slowly, some pausing to glance at the reconstruction efforts, others simply moving with the rhythm of their routines. Their faces are calm, determined, yet shadowed with memory. Each person carries a piece of yesterday, and each step they take is a quiet act of moving forward. The historical significance of these buildings is not lost on me. 90 West Street, the Verizon Building, and the Millennium Hilton were more than mere structures. They were witnesses to the collapse, survivors of forces that could have easily brought them down. Each stone, each beam, each window holds a story of impact, resilience, and recovery. I imagine the countless narratives of office workers caught in hallways, of guests shepherded to safety, of first responders coordinating amidst chaos. These walls hold silent echoes, vibrations of courage, fear, and hope. I walk slowly, letting each moment sink in, aware that my presence here is an act of reflection as much as exploration. The gentle hum of activity, tools, trucks, distant voices, forms a meditative cadence beneath the city's rebirth. I pause to notice a small patch of sunlight spilling across a cracked pavement, warming the cool morning air. It is simple, fleeting, and yet profound. A small reminder that light returns even after overwhelming darkness. My path now curves slightly as I approach the intersection where Church Street meets Liberty. Ahead, the cityscape begins to open, and I can glimpse the faint outlines of 90 Church Street and 1 Liberty Plaza waiting further east. For a moment, I stop at the curb, letting the city breathe around me. The smell of coffee mingles with the earthy scent of construction dust, and the faint tang of river water. The early morning sun continues its slow climb, gilding the edges of buildings and painting long shadows across the streets. I take a deep breath, letting the weight of the past mingle with the promise of the day. My walk eastward is a slow, deliberate journey through memory, observation, and reflection. I carry with me the presence of those who passed through these streets yesterday, the resilience of those who remain today, and the quiet whispers of history that linger in every brick and beam. The city is waking, slowly, deliberately, as I continue my path, stepping further into the heart of memory and reconstruction. And with that, I continue on, leaving behind the quiet shadows of 90 West Street and the steadfast forms of the Verizon Building and Millennium Hilton, moving eastward into the soft embrace of the city's morning glow, ready to encounter the next chapter along Church Street, where 90 Church Street and 1 Liberty Plaza await, and the story of survival and remembrance unfolds further. The sun climbs higher now, spilling golden light across the quiet streets of Lower Manhattan. The city is still waking, and the soft hush of early commuters mingles with the faint hum of distant traffic. I move slowly, deliberately along Church Street, letting the rhythm of my footsteps merge with the lingering stillness. Shadows stretch long across the sidewalks, cutting diagonals across the debris-strewn streets, while the occasional flutter of a pigeon or crow reminds me that life persists, even in spaces scarred by history. Ahead, the familiar facade of 90 Church Street comes into view, its solid form standing quietly in the early light. The building, once a hub of activity, bears the quiet marks of yesterday's devastation. Windows are missing or shattered, walls streaked with soot, the evidence of dust and debris clinging stubbornly to the exterior. Yet it stands, resolute, a silent sentinel amid the echoes of a city forever changed. I pause for a moment at the curb, letting the building's history sink in. This structure, like its neighbors, is more than stone and steel. It is memory incarnate. I imagine the frantic movements of people within its walls yesterday, the hurried steps, the urgent shouts, the uncertainty that rippled through every hallway. I picture office workers shepherded toward safety, the confusion mingling with courage, the ordinary routines of city life interrupted by extraordinary catastrophe. Now, in the gentle dawn, those echoes are faint but persistent, hanging in the air like a soft, mournful note. I step closer to the entrance, noticing the small, almost imperceptible details, the cracks that spiderweb across the sidewalk, the faint residue of dust that clings to every surface, the warped edges of metal and glass that caught the collapse. Even in damage, there is dignity. Even in destruction, there is resilience. I let my fingers brush lightly along the cool stone, feeling the texture, imagining the vibration of the city as it once hummed with life, and the tremor of yesterday's catastrophe. Turning my gaze eastward, the massive silhouette of 1 Liberty Plaza comes into view. Unlike 90 Church Street, whose damage speaks of close proximity to falling debris, 1 Liberty Plaza sustained moderate damage, yet its towering form remains unbroken. Its glass and steel shimmer in the early sunlight, reflecting the pinks and golds of dawn like a mirror of the sky. The building is a symbol of continuity, a sign that even in the aftermath of destruction, the city retains elements of permanence. I pause at a corner where Church Street meets Liberty, letting the sounds of the morning fill me. The faint scrape of boots on concrete, the distant hum of a delivery truck, the soft whisper of the wind threading through scaffolding and trees. All these details form a backdrop for reflection. I breathe deeply, inhaling the mixture of dust, coffee, and river air. Each scent a reminder of the city's layered history. One Liberty Plaza has always been more than a building. It has been a hub of commerce, a structure housing the pulse of a business world that never truly stops. I picture the people inside yesterday, the hurried strides, the startled gasps, the instinctive fear. I imagine the debris that rained down, the alarm bells that rang, and the overwhelming force of the tower's collapse echoing through every floor. And now, standing here in the calm of dawn, I sense a quiet triumph. The building remains, its frame intact, a testament to careful engineering, human courage, and the slow, deliberate work of recovery. As I continue along the sidewalk, I notice the subtle dance of light and shadow across the building's facade. Sunlight catches on the edges of glass panes, casting reflections onto the pavement, while long shadows stretch across construction barriers and the remnants of yesterday's chaos. The interplay is almost mesmerizing, a delicate ballet that reminds me that even in a city scarred by tragedy, moments of beauty persist. Passing One Liberty Plaza, my gaze drifts to the streets around me. Church Street itself tells a story. Here, yesterday, dust and debris fell like an unrelenting tide. People ran, sought cover, guided one another to safety. The sidewalks now are quiet, but the memory of that fear hangs in the air, palpable and almost tangible. I take a slow, deliberate step forward, letting the weight of that history settle gently in my chest. The subtle smells of morning continue to anchor me. The faint aroma of bread from a nearby bakery, mingled with the lingering scent of steel and concrete disturbed by collapse. I notice small shoots of greenery pushing through cracks in the pavement, tiny acts of resilience and life amid destruction. It strikes me that the city itself mirrors these plants. No matter the damage, life continues to push through, fragile but persistent, reaching for light even in shadow. Looking upward, I consider the scale of what once stood nearby. The twin towers of the World Trade Center, monuments of ambition, commerce, and human ingenuity, are gone, leaving a void that is felt more than seen. The open space ahead, now a construction site, is vast and silent, a pause in the rhythm of the city. I let my imagination wander, picturing the towers themselves, their reflective surfaces catching sunlight, the constant flow of workers and visitors, the hum of elevators, the energy of life, and then the sudden, earth-shaking collapse, the clouds of dust and ash enveloping everything. Even now, the ground beneath my feet carries the weight of that history. I continue eastward, stepping slowly along the cracked pavement, letting the quiet rhythm guide me. There are moments when I pause, letting my gaze linger on broken windows, warped steel, and walls scarred with soot. Each mark is a story, a reminder of human vulnerability and resilience. Even in the midst of destruction, there are small signs of hope. A window repaired, a scaffolding supporting a wall, workers moving with purpose. The city is healing, slowly and deliberately, like a wound knitting together under careful attention. As I approach the intersection with Liberty Street, I notice the faint outline of dust still clinging to distant buildings, catching the light in a way that almost resembles fog. The air is filled with tiny motes that dance slowly in the sunlight, each particle a memory suspended in space and time. I breathe it in, letting it mingle with the crisp morning air and the distant scent of the river. Each inhalation carries both grief and hope, sorrow and resilience, weight and lightness. Passing One Liberty Plaza, I allow myself a moment to reflect on the human stories that unfolded here. Office workers, tourists, and passers-by caught in chaos. First responders racing to save lives. Strangers offering hands, guidance, and reassurance. Each story is a thread in the tapestry of this place, woven together with loss and courage, fear and compassion. The buildings are witnesses to these stories, their walls etched not only with physical marks, but with the echoes of memory. The streets ahead begin to open, and I sense the faint outline of the World Trade Center complex waiting further east. The space that once held the Twin Towers stretches wide and quiet, marked by construction and absence. It is a void heavy with significance, yet there is movement here too. Workers clearing, rebuilding, preserving memory. I walk slowly toward it, letting the morning light guide me, absorbing every detail of the buildings I have passed. The steadfast 90 Church Street, the towering presence of One Liberty Plaza, and the quiet resilience of the street itself. As I move east, the rhythm of my footsteps merges with the gentle cadence of the city's awakening. The hum of distant traffic, the soft scrape of boots, the flutter of birds. All these create a meditative backdrop, allowing the weight of history to sink in without overwhelming the senses. Each step is a slow, deliberate act of remembrance. Each pause a meditation on loss and perseverance. And so, I leave behind the quiet resilience of 90 Church Street and the reflective presence of One Liberty Plaza, stepping gently into the open space that leads toward the heart of the city's memory, the World Trade Center complex, where yesterday's towers once stood, and where the stories of courage, loss, and survival converge. My walk continues, measured and mindful, as the city stirs around me and the sun climbs higher, promising a new day amid the lingering shadows of history. The city's silence deepens as I approach the heart of Lower Manhattan, the area once crowned by the Twin Towers. Dawn breaks slowly, brushing the skeletal remnants of the World Trade Center complex with a muted, mournful light. The air is thick, not just with dust and ash, but with a heaviness that seems to settle on every shoulder, every quiet breath. I walk slowly, each step deliberate, across the uneven ground where concrete, steel, and memory intertwine. This is sacred space now, a city's grief rendered in twisted metal and scorched stone. The footprints of WTC-1 and WTC-2 dominate the landscape. Where these monumental towers once rose, there is only absence, a void that feels both immense and intimate. I pause at the edge of the site, letting the morning light illuminate the contours of what remains. I think first of the people, the office workers arriving that morning, the secretaries who organized schedules and answered phones, the custodians and support staff who moved quietly through hallways, the executives walking briskly between meetings. Their lives were ordinary, structured, and yet, in a single, unimaginable instant, they were fractured. Thousands of stories were paused mid-step, mid-breath, mid-thought. I imagine the panic, the chaos, and the courage. Some people fled stairwells with fear as their guide, holding tightly to friends, colleagues, strangers, anyone who might help them survive. Some guided others, offering hands or calm words, their bravery unrecorded but no less significant. The stairs themselves must have felt endless, the air thick with smoke and dust, the echoes of alarms mixing with cries of terror. And then there are the first responders, firefighters and police officers who rushed upward as everyone else descended. Their boots pounded the floors with purpose, their radios crackling with frantic coordination. So many never returned, yet every life saved, every person guided to safety, bore the mark of their courage. The remaining structures of WTC 3 through WTC 6 are broken, bent, scarred. Once housing offices, services, and commerce, these buildings now bear the weight of destruction. The debris clings to every surface, each beam and shard of glass a reminder of the tower's fall. I trace my fingers along a twisted edge of metal, feeling the cool surface beneath my fingertips. I think of the workers who pass through these halls, whose daily routines now exist only in memory. Some may have evacuated, some may have been caught in the debris, and all were touched by the violence of collapse. The buildings themselves are mournful witnesses, silent yet screaming in the absence of the people who gave them life. The silence is occasionally pierced by distant sounds, the scrape of a crane, the shuffle of workers in hard hats moving debris, the low hum of a generator somewhere along the perimeter. These are small signs of life in a space dominated by absence. Yet even in this quiet, the air feels alive with memory. I imagine the planes hurtling toward the towers, the impact and the shockwaves radiating outward, the clouds of dust that engulfed lower Manhattan, and the smoke that rose like a dark tide. I think of the thousands of commuters on nearby streets, the tourists, the residents, ordinary people caught in extraordinary violence. Their experiences, each unique, blend into the collective memory of the city, lingering in every corner. As I walk slowly through the central site, I notice subtle signs of nature asserting itself amid the ruin. Tiny weeds push through cracks in the asphalt, birds alight on beams, indifferent to human grief. Their movements a gentle reminder of life's persistence. The contrast is stark. Life and death coexisting in the same space. The soft rhythm of a bird's wing against the jagged edges of steel. It is a reminder that even amid catastrophe, the world continues to turn, and memory does not dissolve. It accumulates, heavy but enduring. I pause near where the tower's shadows once fell, letting the emptiness speak. I think of the people on the planes, innocent travelers and airline crews, ordinary people undertaking routine journeys that became extraordinary final chapters. Mothers, fathers, children, friends, colleagues, all intertwined in a tragedy that reached across borders and time zones. I allow myself a moment to picture them, holding hands, offering smiles, unaware that their lives would intersect with one of the darkest days of modern history. Their courage and fear were both profound and human, a reflection of all our vulnerabilities. The surrounding streets, now lined with debris and scaffolding, show the marks of human endurance. Workers move methodically, clearing rubble and shoring up weakened structures. I watch them for a moment, noting the rhythm of their labor, the careful placement of beams, the steady movement of heavy machinery, the unspoken understanding that each action is an act of memory and preservation. They are not just rebuilding a city, they are honoring the lives lost, giving structure to grief, transforming chaos into continuity. As the sun continues to rise, WTC 7 comes into view in the distance along Greenwich Street. Though not part of the main Twin Towers, its collapse later in the day adds another layer to this morning's grief. I picture its occupants, office workers, security staff, maintenance teams, each navigating a day that seemed normal, yet ended in uncertainty and fear. Their stories merge with the larger narrative of the complex, an unbroken chain of human experience caught in a moment of profound upheaval. The central site itself is vast, a canyon of memory and loss. Every step is both physical and contemplative, a negotiation between moving forward and pausing to honor. I notice the way light falls across fragments of metal, glinting like tears frozen in time. Shadows stretch long, touching both debris and scaffolding, creating a delicate interplay that mirrors the city's own fractured state. The air smells faintly of river water, dust, and metal, an aroma that carries both the weight of devastation and the faint promise of renewal. The Cortlandt Street subway station, just a stone's throw away, shares a similar story. Completely reduced to rubble by the collapse, it was a place where countless commuters started or ended their days, their footsteps mingling with the rhythmic hum of trains and the murmur of conversation. Yesterday, that rhythm was violently disrupted. I imagine the commuters, office workers clutching briefcases, students with backpacks slung across their shoulders, travelers navigating the city with a map in hand. Each life intersects with the station in memory, each a quiet note in the tragic symphony of the day. The wind moves softly through the exposed station entrances, carrying faint scents of the East River and lingering dust from the collapse. I pause, letting it brush across my face, a gentle reminder that the world continues even in the shadow of calamity. Above me, the skeletal remains of surrounding buildings frame the morning sky, while below, the empty subterranean corridors hint at the lives that pass through them and the silence that now dominates. I allow my imagination to wander through these underground passages, picturing the chaos and courage of yesterday. I see the porters guiding the frightened, the commuters helping strangers, the police officers coordinating evacuations amidst smoke and debris. The ordinary becomes heroic here, a hand reaching out, a calm voice guiding, a moment of clarity in a sea of confusion. Every story, no matter how small, is magnified by the context of destruction and survival. As I continue walking along the edges of the PATH station, I notice signs of slow recovery. Workers move carefully, clearing debris and stabilizing what remains. The hum of machinery is low, but persistent, a rhythm that mirrors the resilience of those who survived and those who return each day to restore the city. Nature also asserts itself here. Small weeds push through cracks in the pavement, a bird flutters across a fallen beam, and the faint light of dawn glints off shards of glass and steel. Life, fragile yet insistent, persists even in the shadow of loss. I pause for a long moment near the station's mouth, reflecting on the passengers of the planes that struck the towers, whose paths intersected indirectly with this very hub. I think of the families, the travelers, the everyday people embarking on ordinary journeys that were transformed into acts of survival, courage, and, tragically for many, finality. Their presence is etched not only in memory, but in the physical space itself, lingering like a silent chorus beneath the city's waking heartbeat. The dust-laden air carries whispers of heroism. Firefighters and police officers navigating the debris-strewn corridors, guiding terrified commuters, coordinating efforts under extreme conditions. These acts of valor are intangible yet deeply embedded in the memory of the place. I imagine a firefighter kneeling in the smoke, helping someone who cannot walk, offering reassurance through a mask of ash and fear. Each act is quiet, often unseen, yet monumental in its significance. Above ground, construction crews carefully map out plans for stabilization. Their movements deliberate, each beam and barricade a physical memorial to those who passed through these spaces yesterday. I watch a worker lift a piece of metal, muscles straining but movements precise. Even amid destruction, the human spirit persists, rebuilding not just structures, but memory itself. The city is a palimpsest of loss and renewal. Every stroke of steel and every careful removal of debris, a way to honor lives and stories that can never be replaced. The soft dawn light filters through the gaps between buildings and debris piles, illuminating shards of glass and twisted steel, creating patterns that shimmer like frozen tears. I pause, letting my gaze drift upward, imagining the towers before they fell, their reflective surfaces catching sunlight, the elevators humming with workers, the ordinary yet extraordinary rhythm of city life. And then, the sudden, earth-shattering collapse, the clouds of dust, the cries, the frantic dash for survival. Even now, the memory of that day hangs in the air, visible in every fragment of the transportation hub, palpable in the silence of the station corridors. I allow my thoughts to linger on the human stories. The commuters, the staff, the travelers, the first responders, each navigating fear and uncertainty. The complexity of their experiences is almost unbearable to hold, yet necessary. Every life was touched in some way. Some saved, some lost, some forever changed by trauma that cannot be measured. I let the quiet embrace me, the city's grief mingling with my own reflection, as I walk slowly past the skeletal edges of the PATH hub and the flattened Cortlandt Street station. Nature, persistent and quiet, continues its subtle assertion. A bird lands on a fallen steel beam, its feathers catching the first golden light of morning. A tiny weed has pushed through a crack in the asphalt, defying the weight of the surrounding debris. The faint ripple of wind carries the soft scent of the East River, mingling with dust and the faint metallic tang of steel. Even here, where humanity's structures have been tested and fractured, life insists on continuing. As I move eastward, I prepare to leave the immediate vicinity of the transportation hub and subway behind, my path carrying me toward Fighterman Hall and WTC 7. But the memory of those underground spaces lingers, the echo of hurried footsteps, the courage of ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances, and the presence of those who are no longer with us. Every step I take is a quiet homage to resilience, survival, and memory, guiding me gently toward the next chapter of this somber dawn walk. The soft light of early morning grows stronger as I move away from the debris and silence of the underground, revealing the streets leading toward the borough of Manhattan Community College campus. In the distance, the outline of Fighterman Hall rises, scarred but enduring. Northward, WTC 7 appears along Greenwich Street, a reminder of the layered stories of loss, resilience, and courage that unfold across this neighborhood. I pause briefly to breathe in the mingling scents of river, dust, and early morning air, letting the quiet rhythm of my steps and the subtle movement of the city guide me. The underground spaces, Path Station, and Cortlandt Street subway remain etched in memory, both for their significance in daily life and their centrality in the tragedy of the tower's collapse. They are silent witnesses to fear, courage, loss, and human perseverance. And now, bathed in dawn's light, they quietly invite reflection, meditation, and remembrance, guiding me onward through a city that grieves but endures. The morning light stretches gently over lower Manhattan, softening the harsh edges of the city and illuminating streets still marked by the events of the previous day. Dawn carries a quiet promise, yet it is a fragile one, tempered by memory, loss, and the lingering shadows of what has transpired. I move southeast from the main World Trade Center site, each step deliberate, feeling the weight of the city beneath my feet and the echoes of history in every corner. The air is crisp, tinged with the faint scent of ash, dust, and the nearby river. It is a quiet, contemplative morning, and the world feels suspended between grief and tentative renewal. Ahead, Fighterman Hall emerges, part of the borough of Manhattan Community College campus. Once a vibrant space of learning, filled with students, professors, and staff, it now bears the marks of devastation. Windows are shattered or blackened, walls streaked with debris, and the lower floors show evidence of structural reinforcement amid lingering rubble. Yet the building stands, a symbol of endurance amid chaos. I pause, letting the sight settle in my mind. I imagine the moment the Twin Towers fell, dust and debris cascading, buildings trembling, alarms blaring, voices rising in terror and courage alike. And then, the survivors, moving cautiously through the cloud, seeking safety while witnessing loss on an unimaginable scale. I step closer to Fighterman Hall, brushing my fingers against the cold metal of a railing along the sidewalk. The texture is rough under my touch, carrying the silent memory of the chaos that swept through. I think of the students and faculty who navigated these halls yesterday, their hurried movements, instinctive acts of care, the courage of helping one another through smoke-filled corridors. Even in survival, trauma leaves its trace, a quiet echo of fear and perseverance that endures in the walls and in the minds of those who lived it. The building itself is quiet now, but the morning light reveals signs of life slowly returning. Birds flutter along roof lines, landing briefly before taking flight again. A small breeze stirs, lifting dust motes that drift like fragile ghosts in the sunlight. Even in a landscape scarred by destruction, life finds a way to assert itself. Delicate, but persistent. Each small movement, pigeons cooing softly, weeds pushing through cracked pavement, sunlight glinting off jagged shards of glass, offers a meditation on resilience, a reminder that recovery, however slow, begins in the smallest, quietest ways. I continue my slow walk north along Greenwich Street, approaching WTC 7, its 47-story frame standing somberly amid the remnants of Lower Manhattan. The building suffered extensive damage from fires ignited by debris from the Twin Towers and ultimately collapsed later in the day, though notably, no lives were lost inside WTC 7. Its destruction is a striking testament to structural vulnerability, yet it also symbolizes the extraordinary luck and resilience of those who evacuated in time. I pause, letting the scale of the building and its story settle in my mind. The streets here are nearly empty, the quiet interrupted only by the faint hum of distant machinery, the shuffle of workers navigating debris-strewn sidewalks, and the soft coo of pigeons overhead. Each sound is a gentle reminder of the ongoing dance between life and loss, the slow rhythm of a city in mourning, yet determined to endure. I imagine the people who worked inside WTC 7, administrative staff, office employees, custodial workers, watching the towers collapse, feeling the tremors beneath their feet, and making the split-second decisions that allowed them to escape the devastation. Their survival carries with it a complex weight, relief mingled with grief for colleagues, friends, and strangers lost nearby. I stop at a corner, letting my gaze trace the structure of WTC 7 from base to summit. Sunlight catches on broken windows, illuminating steel frames and glinting off the surfaces of what remains. Each scar on the building is a silent witness, each shattered pane a reflection of chaos endured and lives preserved. I think of the firefighters and emergency personnel who moved through these streets, coordinating evacuations, offering guidance, and facing danger with steadfast courage. Their presence threads through every corner of the neighborhood, a quiet testament to bravery amid unimaginable circumstances. Turning my attention back to Fighterman Hall, I reflect on its proximity to the devastation and the narrow escape its occupants experienced. Though heavily damaged, it was spared total destruction. Students, staff, and faculty had fled in haste, many covered in dust and soot, carrying the shock of witnessing lives lost, buildings crumbling, and the surreal sight of a city transformed by tragedy. I imagine the communal resilience in that moment, the quiet guidance of teachers, the reassurance of friends, and the unspoken bond shared among strangers confronting mortality together. The morning continues to grow warmer, yet the air remains tinged with faint dust and ash, remnants of yesterday's chaos. I pause to notice a small tree along the sidewalk, its leaves trembling in the wind, droplets of dew catching the rising sunlight. The contrast between fragile life and urban devastation strikes me deeply. Even amid rubble, growth persists. Even amidst grief, resilience remains. Each blade of grass, each flutter of wings becomes a meditation on survival, a gentle reminder that life and hope endure despite overwhelming loss. I move slowly along Greenwich Street, stepping carefully over uneven patches of pavement littered with shards of glass and scattered debris. The quiet hum of machinery signals reconstruction, yet the city's heartbeat remains tender, cautious. The silence allows reflection. I consider the thousands of lives lost in the Central World Trade Center complex. Office workers, cleaners, security staff, and first responders in WTC-1 and WTC-2, passengers on the planes, and all those who were thrust into the chaos of that day. Each life carries its own story, and the weight of these narratives hangs softly in the morning air. Passing WTC-7, I look northward along Greenwich Street. The building's collapse, while resulting in no fatalities, is a powerful visual reminder of the city's vulnerability and the unpredictable consequences of catastrophe. I think of the survivors, carrying both relief and the heavy burden of memory. I imagine them walking these streets in the hours following the disaster, dust-covered and shaken, seeking refuge, connection, and reassurance. Their stories are stitched into the urban landscape, echoed in the silent steel beams, the scarred pavements, and the quiet flow of river air that drifts through the streets. Fighterman Hall and WTC-7, though different in fate, share a connective thread of resilience and reflection. One building stands as a testament to human perseverance, sheltering students and staff through chaos, bearing the scars of debris and dust. The other reminds us of vulnerability and the fortuity of survival, showing that even in engineered precision, life is fragile, and safety is never guaranteed. Both are markers in the city's topography of memory, a space where reflection, mourning, and hope coexist. I stop briefly, closing my eyes and letting the memory of yesterday merge with the present. I think of the first responders who moved tirelessly across this area, firefighters, police officers, all risking life and limb, guiding the living, searching for the lost, and attempting to restore order amid chaos. Their courage is etched invisibly into the streets, into the buildings, and into the hearts of those who survived. I honor them silently, listening to the gentle hum of the morning city, punctuated by the soft coo of pigeons and distant calls of workers continuing their efforts. Opening my eyes, I notice the interplay of light and shadow across the remaining structures. Dust motes drift in sunbeams, each one carrying a trace of memory. The quiet is comforting, yet sorrowful, a space for reflection that honors the human cost of tragedy while acknowledging the persistence of life. I take a deep, deliberate breath, letting the rhythm of my steps and the cadence of the city synchronize with my thoughts. Each footfall is a meditation, a slow acknowledgement of loss and endurance. I move further along Greenwich Street, pausing intermittently to notice small signs of recovery. A worker adjusts scaffolding. A pigeon lands on a ledge and then takes flight. Sunlight gleams on a patch of broken glass, reflecting fleeting color into the morning air. The contrast between destruction and persistence strikes me as deeply symbolic. Even amidst devastation, life presses forward, fragile but unyielding. The city heals incrementally, and each small step carries the weight of history and memory. Finally, I reach a point where the central WTC site, Fighterman Hall, and WTC7 are framed together in a quiet tableau. I pause to absorb the panorama, the void where the Twin Towers once stood, the scarred but enduring facade of Fighterman Hall, and the skeletal remains of WTC7. The morning light casts long shadows, painting the streets in soft golds and muted grays. The air hums with quiet possibility, honoring the lives lost while acknowledging the resilience of those who remain. I reflect on the human narratives embedded in this space, the thousands who perished, the countless lives changed forever, the survivors who navigate trauma and memory daily, and the emergency personnel whose courage threads through every corner. Every brick, every beam, every speck of dust is infused with stories of fear, hope, loss, and perseverance. As the sun climbs higher, illuminating the streets with warmth and clarity, I take a final step along Greenwich Street. The gentle morning wind carries the faint scent of river water and the lingering traces of dust, mingling with the quiet chirp of birds. Life persists, memory endures, and hope, though fragile, is unmistakably present. Rest easy, friends. The rabbit hole of time holds many more slow steps. Until we meet again, Silas is signing off.